Media literacy is dead. And we killed it with a big red axe. And not like the one that the firefighters have, or even red from the blood of an axe murder. Or maybe it is. It's red because of a certain streaming platform's brand logo covering it head to toe, like Santa's on wrapping paper. If you clicked on this video, it is more than likely that you're just a very cultured person who is aware of what, or rather who, Byler are. But for the sake of the video essayism of it all, I'm going to give you a brief, maybe inaccurate, summary and definition. So Byler is a ship name of the characters from Stranger Things, Will Byers and Mike Wheeler. A ship is a relationship between two fictional characters, sometimes real-life people, but that can get ethically dubious and problematic real fast, so for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to go with fictional characters. The word ship can be used as a noun, so it signifies the term for a relationship between two characters, or it can be used as a verb, so the verb to ship, which refers to the action of actively rooting for a fictional couple to get together or to prosper together in a relationship. To ship can also mean to actively create discussion, fan art, fan fiction, and other media involving the ship. Byler is actually quite a fan favorite ship, one of the more famous ships from the Stranger Things fandom, as I have come to learn quite quickly after getting myself involved in this fandom after kind of avoiding it for the last 10 years. Most notably, this ship has been in constant battle, or rather a war, with their rival ship, Mise-en-scène, which is of course the ship between Mike Wheeler and Eleven. Since the ship's inception many years ago, I'm hesitant to say that this war has always been double-sided, but we can come back to that later. The ship has recently been awarded the Ship of the Year award on Tumblr, which was quite a stir internet-wide, and quite a monumental moment for shippers. In my humble opinion, I believe that this popularity is quite warranted, considering that it's a big central ship in one of the shows of all time, or the show that made Netflix the behemoth of slop creation that it is today, regrettably.
And additionally, this ship is one of those rare queer ships between protagonistic characters of a huge mainstream show that actually has a large area of solid ground to stand on, with heaps of context, scenes, subtextual clues throughout the 5 seasons of the show. Recently, following the airing of the final season and finale of the show, in all of its disastrous flopped glory, has been under a lot of criticism and scrutiny from their rival Mise-en-scène shippers, even more so than before, as Byler did not in fact become explicitly canon within the show itself, despite numerous easily provable written-in moments of build-up that actually ended up making zero sense by the end of the show, due to lack of follow-through regarding Byler. Well, it is easily provable given that you have an ounce of media literacy, which I have personally come to learn many people on God's internet severely lack. All of that to say, what exactly does this have to do with media literacy being dead? Well, somehow, despite my adamant efforts to stay away from getting involved in the colossus that is Stranger Things, despite being in its orbit since I was 14 years old and extremely chronically online, having my life revolve around fandom cultures online, I somehow fell into it right before the airing of Season 5, Volume 1. My first conspiracy theory for today is that I fell victim to the TikTok algorithm's propaganda, pushing me to engage by showing me Byler content, knowing full well that it is exactly something I identify with and be inclined to participate right as the new season aired. Well, I did in fact participate. I watched Stranger Things up until Season 5, Volume 1 because that is all that aired at the time, with my own very eyes as someone who was new to the show and completely naive and new to the fandom without knowing years of lore and the popular zeitgeist. I could plainly see the subtext. Not even, it was text, just plain text, spelled out and written out starting from Season 3 that Byler was being set up and foreshadowed. Mind you, I was a casual watcher at the time, not particularly invested and not with much skin in the game, and I saw it immediately. Then I watched the content fans post, what the discussion is, and found myself completely agreeing with it all. None of the things I saw were delusional. It all made sense and felt further cemented by Season 5, Volume 1, with the iconic, extremely highly rated episode, Sorcerer. If you want to see an amazing detailed breakdown of all the subtext and clues throughout the show that led to this logical conclusion, please check out these two amazing videos by Nikki Carrion and Ronald Off the Record. I absolutely adore these two videos. They say everything I was thinking to the T. Furthermore, following the end of Volume 1, I was very simply and confidently convinced that they were definitely going to be endgame. It simply felt logical and natural. I had no Byler down in my mind, and I saw this as a survivor of the great queerbait of BBC Sherlock and Voltron Legendary Defender. I have been through the ringer and the trenches, and I thought that would have prepared me plentifully to spot queerbait, but I saw none. I saw queer, but no bait. However, as it turns out, the queer was indeed baited. In the most absurd way possible, following the release of Volume 2 and 3, which were such flops in Cooked City that it famously gave their massive fanbase outside the Byler niche full-on psychosis as well. The infamous Conformity Gate, the theory of the secret real ending coming out on January 7th of 2026, which of course was not real, because the Duffers are simply not smart enough to write that well, and Netflix wouldn't allow them to be anyways, as in my personal conspiracy theory, their involvement was also significant in shutting down Byler from making history in mainstream media. As I have mentioned earlier, it was plain to see that there was Byler build-up set up long before the Great Gaslight of Volume 2 and 3, if you had an ounce of media literacy skills within you. But as it turns out, the contemporary mass audience, the normies if you will, severely lack those soft skills. Let me quickly pull out my measly credentials before starting to make accusations here. I do in fact own a degree in media and communication with a track in film directing, as well as a minor degree in film arts. I also do have a previous run-in with Netflix themselves, evident in my single existing IMDb credit from my internship days as a camera PA in the production set of a Netflix original show. All of that, no matter how small, I think grants me the right to say that I in fact know a thing or two about media creation and media consumption alike. Media literacy is the ability to assess, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. It involves critically thinking about media messages, such as news, social media, and advertising, to understand their purpose, identify bias, and distinguish facts from opinions. This skill set helps individuals navigate the digital world safely, recognize manipulation, and make informed decisions. When it comes to James Potter's definition, it is blunt in the way that it needs to be. Media literacy is a set of perspectives that we actively use to expose ourselves to media and interpret meaning. That word, actively, is doing most of the work here. Media literacy is not a passive trait you either have or do not have, something you develop with practice. A set of perspectives you intentionally turn on like a light so you can actually see what you are standing inside of. Potter argues that media literacy is built from 3 building blocks: skills, knowledge structures, and personal locus. That triad matters because it explains why so many online arguments go nowhere. When people fight about media, whether a news story is propaganda, whether a creator is problematic, whether a finale makes sense, whether a character is queer-coded or explicitly queer, they often believe they are debating evidence. But really, if we're being honest, they're usually debating perspectives built on totally different internal architectures. Things like perspective of the author, perspective of the audience, personal bias, and object truth.
Okay, guess what's the one thing we consume copious amounts of every day without noticing?
Air?
Nope, wrong. It's media. Media is all around us these days, on our phones, on our TVs, in our conversations, and even on the streets.
What's next? We're gonna eat media?
Well, maybe in some way we already do. We live and breathe media, and as we protect ourselves from harmful things in the air by wearing masks, we protect ourselves from harmful aspects of the media by using something called media literacy.
There are harmful aspects to the media?
Of course, as anything we consume, media has some specific effects on us, and they can be harmful at the same time as beneficial.
How do we know which ones are which?
Well, there's the concept of media effects and multiple theories that have been developed to understand them. Understanding media effects and theories is an important element of media literacy.
Ooh, I think I remember these from media literacy class. The first one is direct effects model, right? This concept assumed that audiences would take media messages passively and respond in predictable ways. For example, after hearing War of the Worlds on the radio in 1938, a fake news report of an alien invasion, some people believed it to be true and were terrified.
That's right. And the next one is agenda setting theory, if I remember correctly.
The agenda setting theory of media, in contrast to the extreme views of the direct effects model, states that mass media define the topics that interest the public rather than the population's view.
Yup, this theory is used by critics who suggest that a certain media outlet has an agenda.
The next one, the uses of gratifications theory, states that consumers use the media to fulfill specific wants or desires. For example, you might love watching Dancing with the Stars while also tweeting about it.
As for the theory of symbolic interactionism, it claims that the self emerges from and grows via human interaction. Basically, the way you act towards someone or something is determined by the meaning you assign to them.
Advertising is one of the ways that media generates and uses cultural symbols to influence a person's sense of self as well.
Yes, and other non commercial symbols are also promoted by the media. Through media depiction of national and state flags, religious emblems, and personalities gain a shared symbolic connotation.
My favorite one is Spiral of Silence theory because it has the coolest name. Sounds like something out of The Lord of the Rings. This theory analyzes the functions of mass media in the establishment and preservation of prevailing beliefs by stating that those who have a minority perspective silence themselves to avoid social isolation.
According to the much less cool sounding media logic theory, popular media formats and styles are used to perceive the world. Because of the media's deep cultural entanglement, viewers only need to watch a few minutes of a television program to figure out whether it's a news show, a comedy, or a reality show.
All right now, for the last one, right? The cultivation analysis theory. According to this theory, people who are exposed to a lot of media develop an illusory perception of reality based on the medium's most repetitive and consistent messages.
And that is pretty much it for now. But as media evolves, so will its effects. Who knows, maybe some more theories will be developed in the future.
Duh, Sherlock.
Yeah, well, I hope this refreshed your memory. Being aware of these theories about the effects media can have on us is important to develop mechanisms and careful tactics so as to not let these effects be harmful.
Yes, now you just sound like a grandmother.
Potter's model treats skills as tools, ways of breaking down and working with information, analysis, evaluation, and others. If you do not practice the tools, you cannot reliably tell the difference between subtext and wishful thinking, between editing and truth, between a narrative choice and a corporate constraint. He also explains that knowledge structures give you context for each new media message, and that the more developed those structures are, the more confident you can be across a wide range of messages. In plain language, you can't read the room if you don't know what the room is. And drives.
Potter notes that when the personal locus is weak, you default to media control, letting media steer exposure and processing. It forces the question, what do I want from this media? And what does this media want from me? Do those two align? This soft skill is one of the most crucial for us in the current climate, to navigate the hellscape that is mass media in order to discern the biased media like propaganda and fake news from true information. And it is also useful in understanding, analyzing, and internalizing stories we see in fictional media as well. At a time when all these corporations want is to commoditize our attention and stir us in a direction that is either political gain or economic gain. Most of the time nowadays, that direction is actually two directions that face opposite each other, which is used in order to divide us further. This division can be startlingly noticed in the Stranger Things fandom of all places. So many Bylers begin to receive strong criticism for their analysis of the show, even crossing into bullying and death threats. This is often brushed off as not that deep, despite having a profound effect on the landscape of the internet as a whole, pushing the queer population further away from the normalized mainstream, giving homophobic people the ammunition needed to perpetuate their harmful action.
Hello, Editing Gooch here. I just wanted to share this one find that I have found recently. Yes, I have been editing this video for so goddamn long. It's been about uh 4 months. I don't know. I don't know how long it's been, but I think it's been like 4 months, which is pretty tame for me. My last video took me 6 to 10 months to finish because I don't know, something's undiagnosed over there. But I just wanted to show this screenshot, okay? Not to put people on blast or to put people on blast because I mean, that's what this whole video is about, right? People will just be saying shit and they will fight for shit that they don't know anything about. The original post is basically talking about the mise-en-scène. You know what mise-en-scène is? I'm probably mispronouncing that. My professor would beat the hell out of me, but mise-en-scène is more than just like the way that the frame looks. It's about building the frame and planning the frame out. And usually people who are, storyboarding or the camera team, the DOP, the director of photography, they're usually the ones working on this, like setting up the mise-en-scène. But the director also has a say in it as well. And of course, it depends. Like in my experience, it was mostly the DOP and then the director would just approve of it. But the mise-en-scène is supposed to tell a story within a single frame or like within the camera lens, camera frame. It's supposed to be pushing the story forward or like in consistency with the plot, visual storytelling. And the frame being discussed in the original post is a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little bit intentional looking. It's like it's pretty advanced. Okay, it's not just a very simple framing, like simple shot. It's not a two shot, it's not a three shot, it's not just a group shot. It's a forefront with a drawing in the forefront with a clear screen. Deliberately through the clear screen, through the drawing, we are looking at the 5 shot or the group shot that it is. I'm looking at it right now. And I'm like, well, it's clearly fucking deliberate. Like, can't you see that the way that Jane or 11 is situated in the center frame behind the screen that has the centered drawing on top of it? Clearly that's, a planned frame. That's mise-en-scène. But people in the comments will be like, what are we talking about here? Well, I don't want to be rude, but they're literally just standing next to each other. I mean, Mike can stand next to Nancy as well, can't he? Don't mean to sound like a hater. You don't sound like a hater. You sound like you don't know what you're talking about, because if you look at that screenshot and you are gonna argue with the person saying that, the shot is insane, whatever, like they're just calling out the shot. They haven't even given an analysis yet, but they're just, insinuating that the shot is kind of advanced and has a message behind it. Actually, they didn't even say what the message was. And people in the comments are already disagreeing with the message because, probably on a subconscious level, they can see what it means. I think they can see what it means because that's when you plan out a mise-en-scène, like you wanted to tell something just by looking at it, the audience is already able to interpret something about the story, about the characters. So you kind of have an interpretation, but you want to reject that interpretation, so you give a more simplified, like direct to the point interpretation that like, oh, these things don't matter. The way that the peak characters are standing in the scene doesn't really matter. But it does. That's the whole point. Like people don't just walk accidentally in front of the camera. Like there's a whole bunch of people, at least a few interns, who have to crawl around the floor and put little T markers to make sure that the actors return to that exact same fucking spot when they do a retake. Because they they block out the shot beforehand so that, the camera is gonna have either like static camera or it's gonna have its movement path so that you have to make sure that the characters, first of all, are in shot, but also in shot the way that you want them to be shot. So in a specific manner that is pre-planned. It's not just random, okay? That's not how it works. It's not random. When I had the experience of working on the show, the director would literally be like, I want him standing next to her, I want her standing next to him, or these two standing next to each other, and then I want this one behind the other one. And it has to be. And then the DOP will make sure that within the camera frame, everybody fits well and there's a map. But people will literally be like, it's not that deep. It is that deep. It's the whole point. Please, let's not scab that. Please, let's foster a culture of thinking deeply. Or maybe we are just giving too much credit to the Duff brothers. Maybe everything was just on accident. Maybe they had that drawing and they were like, what if we put the camera behind the screen? Wait, but where are we gonna put the character? Wait, I just want some symmetry. I remember somebody said something about the rule of thirds. So let's just place... If it's that way, then what else is a coincidence? Everything, I guess. Everything. Or maybe... No, that was pre-ChatGPT. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah. Read more books, guys.
Many people began pushing the notion that people supporting Byler are delusional and weird, as ironic as that sounds, coming from fans of a show that hails itself as a safe haven for freaks, losers, and outcasts who do not conform. It is simply untrue, due to the content of the media itself. Despite the words of the authors in this case, the Duffer Brothers and Netflix, not only because they have been doing nothing else other than contradicting themselves time and time again. If a viewer can watch seasons of a show and notice repeated framing, mirrored dialogue, loaded visual motives, and character dynamics that function as clear romantic coding and romantic tropes, then the viewer is not automatically delusional. They are doing interpretation. They are treating the text as text. That is the baseline of media literacy. Meaning is constructed, but not merely delivered. If the show does not spoon-feed a message, skepticism. That is laziness disguised as objectivity. It is a refusal to analyze unless analysis is rewarded. This is where Potter's set of perspectives becomes a weapon you either pick up or drop. Because if you drop it, you do not just misunderstand fiction, you become easier to move in the real world. When an audience loses the habit of analysis, it becomes vulnerable to the oldest trick in mass persuasion, narrowing what counts as real. If only explicit statements count, then whoever controls the explicit statement controls reality. Corporations love that. So does any power structure that benefits from you outsourcing your interpretation. Algorithm loves it because algorithm is not neutral. It is a training environment, it selects for engagement, and engagement is often anger, certainty, ridicule, and tribal defense. So, reactions. That is why discourse turns into ship wars, harassment and threats instead of arguments and discussion. A platform optimized for reaction will slowly erase the muscle for reflection. In Potter's terms, that is what happens when personal locus collapses and you fall back into automaticity. You are no longer choosing how to process messages. You are being processed by them. I was completely appalled by the blatant lack of critical thinking and analysis displayed in TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube comments of different Byler content. The sheer lack of acknowledgement that the media message exists and that writing involves subtext or the non-straightforward messaging at all was and still is extremely frustrating. The links people will go to in the comments to put down people shielded by the straightforward outcome of the finale, despite the fact that it contained numerous plot holes and illogical out-of-character writing that contradicted itself time and time again, was insane. People seemingly have lost fear of appearing dumb as rocks because frankly that is exactly what you come off as when you are fighting in the comments, barking and barking while waving around a consolation prize that is just metallic coated plastic. It's disheartening to see the sheer amount of people ready to eat up the brainwashed slop handed to them by the corporate overlords at face value. This is deep because media has a profound effect on society as a whole, and we can already see the negative effects manifesting. And this reaction only proves that the masses have been brainwashed enough to basically accept anything they're told and fight to uphold the status quo despite glaring contradictions. It's almost like I have seen that somewhere before. Stranger Things is actually not the only media where this has been prevalent recently. There's another Netflix show that has risen to moderate mainstream popularity recently. It being the anime called The Summer Hikaru Died. It is a gorgeous animated supernatural horror show where the supernatural horror is used as an allegory and symbolism for queerness and internalized homophobia. Despite the show clearly being about queerness, with the main character Yoshiki being canonically in love with Hikaru, because there's no explicit, outright, pre-digested message spelling out that they are both queer and that this is what the show is about, many people online would fight tooth and nail to say that people love making friends gay. People are so weird. Oh, these queers always can't let best friends be best friends. Conversely, it is interesting to see the similarity of the dynamic between Hikaru and Yoshiki and Mike and Will. Both of the pairs are childhood best friends, where one of them is much more openly accepting of their feelings for the other, meanwhile the other is secretly suffering from internalized homophobia and the fear of accepting nonconformity. These people state their evidence source as the fact that the show and manga is not tagged as a BL, though it had seemingly been tagged that way some point prior, failing to acknowledge the fact that a show can be queer and about queer love without being labeled as a BL, because those types of media in that media sphere have BL as regrettably its own category and genre. The genre of the show is not BL, but that doesn't mean that automatically the characters in the show cannot be queer. A cream cheese sandwich will still be a cream cheese sandwich no matter what the bun looks like. Not every cream cheese sandwich should be between 2 slices of white bread. Even if it's between 2 burger buns, the fact of the matter is that it still has cream cheese in it. It doesn't just suddenly become cheddar cheese. Potter explicitly argues that the raw material is information from the media and from the real world, and meaning making comes from building knowledge structures with skills and willingness. In other words, you don't decide what a story is by checking its label first. You decide by analyzing what it represents, communicates, implies, and reinforces. So when people argue it can't be queer, this isn't a media argument. This is a category argument. And category arguments are often a way to avoid confronting meaning. Labels become shields. The shield says, if it isn't stamped, I don't have to think about it. Refusing to read subtext doesn't make you rational. It makes you easier to manage. The lack of more abstract, complex thinking is astonishing sometimes and makes me afraid of the future. Because if people are not only so ready to accept anything given to them without much of a fight, but also so ready to fight others who are actually trying to analyze the information provided to them, what awaits ahead of us? Especially at a time when everybody wants to monetize us and weaponize us against each other. It would be comforting to keep this contained inside of pop culture, to treat it as silly internet drama, but fandom is just a magnifying glass. It reveals how people process messages everywhere else. News, politics, advertising, conspiracy spirals, and corporate PR. Potter warns that media literacy is multidimensional and varies widely across people because people vary in skills and experience, and therefore in how many perspectives they can use. It determines who gets manipulated, who gets radicalized, and who gets sold, who gets scapegoated, and who gets convinced that every contradiction is not that deep. People not only accept shallow messaging but attack anyone who digs deeper. The danger is not just misinformation, the danger is anti-thinking. A culture where interpretation is mocked becomes a culture where power can rewrite reality faster than the public can notice. And yes, this shows up in how people treat queer readings. When a mass audience is trained to demand explicitness as the only form of truth, marginalized experiences that historically have lived in subtext because the explicitness was punished
have become easier to erase. The demand for proof becomes a tool for denial, the reasonable stance becomes the convenient stance. So, what about that corpse? Let's dig it up. We can stop pretending that it's not that deep is a personality trait that is worth celebrating. We can admit that meaning exists even when it is inconvenient, even when it is unmarketable, even when it is only visible if you actually look. Potter's definition doesn't ask to become paranoid. It asks you to become active, not passive. To carry a set of perspectives you choose, build from skills you practice, fueled by a personal locus you own. So yes, maybe the axe already fell, but the hand holding it is still ours. Byler forever. See you in the next one.